Hi, my name is Andy Valadez. I'm with Marketing Dynamics. You're watching another edition of Marketing Dynamics Behind the Scenes. Today we have Mr. Stephen Willeford, the Barefoot Defender, aka the good guy with the gun. And today's topic, I'm going to talk about talent representation. So I met Stephen Willeford several years ago at an event where we were going to speak, and I tagged him on Facebook, and he goes, "What event? Where?" And so we wound up talking to the producer of the event, and we wound up meeting each other in Hearn a couple of years ago. And so that's how we got started to chat with each other. But Stephen, for folks that don't know who you are, I'm sure everybody knows, and a lot of people know who you are, right? So a man that really does not need an introduction, but we're going to go ahead and give you a brief for those that don't. Tell the folks who you are.
So my name is Stephen Willeford. I am fourth generation on a little piece of property in a little town called Sutherland Springs, Texas, where total population of Sutherland Springs is about 600 people or less. And on November 5th, 2017, a crazy man came into my little community and started shooting and killing people, started shooting through the walls of the church, through the windows of a 100-year-old church, and murdering people. My daughter made me aware of what was going on. I ran to my safe, I grabbed an AR-15, and I ran across the street barefoot. People ask me, "Well, why were you barefoot? Why didn't you put shoes on?" I tell them, "You're lucky I had pants on." Because every shot I knew was aimed at one of my neighbors, one of my friends, one of my community members, and I couldn't take time to put shoes on. But I ran across the street, and as I ran across the street, I truly believe God called me out, and God spoke from me and yelled out and called a demon out within the church, because he had shot Chris Workman in the back, instantly paralyzing him, shot Chris's mother through the breast, and he was walking over to execute them, as he did with so many other people. And when he heard me yell out, he came out. He dropped his rifle in the church, interesting enough, and he came out of the church shooting at me with a pistol. And I ran behind a truck and for cover, came up over the hood of the truck. He hit the truck in front of me, shattered the windshield of the car behind me. He hit the house behind me, and I put 6 out of 6 rounds on him and won the battle. And that's why they call me the Barefoot Defender.
Well, I remember reading about that in the news, and what a horrific day that was, November 5th, 2017. And to finally get to meet you and your wife and your family, and actually attend the church, got to meet some of the people that were the survivors of that day, David Colbath,
Gunny Macias,
and met, yes, incredible people, incredible community, wonderful church. If you ever have an opportunity to visit the church in Sutherland Springs, First Baptist Church, definitely encourage you to do that. There's a documentary out now called The Miracle on 34th Street. And some other
Miracle
stuff.
on 3rd Street.
I'm sorry.
On 4th Street.
I'll
Miracle on 4th Street.
Miracle on 4th Street. I'll correct that in the video. So, a lot of people don't realize, that you said you've been talking about gun rights and issues that people are talking about today for years, and all of a sudden now, a big spotlight is brought upon you, and you never asked for this.
Never asked for it.
All this media shows up, it just really turned your life upside down, to be caught up in something like this. And you shared, what that was like, but now you've got, people wanting you to come speak at their events. You do a lot of radio, and you're with the Gun Owners of America now. Can you talk a little bit about why you've made yourself available for this, and then what your life is like, now, 5 years later?
Well, after this happened, the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick of Texas, came to speak to me, and he told me right away that they were going to treat me as if I was an officer involved in a shooting, and that they were going to give me mandatory time off. And I said, "Wait a minute, I don't work for the state, I work for a hospital." They said, "Don't worry about it, we're going to go talk to the CEO of the hospital. He'll see it our way, even if Texas has to pay for your time off." And they said, "But right along with that, we want you to go through counseling with the Texas Rangers counselor." And she told me right away, and this was profound because I didn't believe her, but she told me right away, "You're going to have to get used to a new normal." And I told her, but I love my old normal and I just wanted to go back to normal. And she said, the moment you ran outside your house, your life changed and there is no going back to the old normal. And I said, what does my new normal look like? And she said, that depends on you. And I found out really quickly after this was over that yes, my old normal went away. And so I had to figure out what my new normal looked like. And I am no longer a maintenance plumber at a hospital. Instead, I travel all over this United States fighting for our rights to keep and bear arms. And that was always a passion of mine before this happened. I used to talk about it all the time, but nobody was willing to listen. And after this happened, my story was relevant. And people started listening to what I had to say. I've trained churches and I work with churches and help them set up safety response teams to be able to confront something when it goes wrong like this. I've spoken with United States congressmen and talked to them about our right to bear arms and how it should not be infringed on. I was brought out on stage by Donald Trump before 70,000 people. I spoke at the Virginia Capitol before 100,000 people. I was never a public speaker before. I guess I qualify now. And when God pushes you in a certain direction, you comply. You figure it out real quick that this is what you're going to do. And so marketing is a big thing because it allows me to do the things that I'm doing now.
Right, so there's an old saying in wisdom that if you want to test a person's character, give them a measure of fame. And so, I've gotten to know you now for several years. A lot of people can attest, you haven't let this go to your head. You're a humble guy. You're a dad, wife, many years. How long have y'all been married?
Coming up on 34.
Awesome.
I have now, as a matter of fact, and it's what? It's 4:33 as we're speaking now. At 6 o'clock today, I find out what my 7th grandbaby is going to be, a boy or girl.
Awesome.
So they're going to call me up and FaceTime me, and I'm going to figure that out. And so I got a 7th grandbaby on the way, none of which were born before the shooting. It was all after the shooting. God keeps continuing to bless me with grandbabies and so many cool things.
And as you talk about that, being a family man, it's a sacrifice to be on the road. You're away from your family in hotels, restaurants. You may not necessarily like the food, but it's a journey. Right?
I am, and like I say, today my family's all gathered together to have a gender reveal party. And where am I? I'm 300 miles away, and I'm going to do it on a FaceTime on a telephone. And so in some ways that's a little sad, and I miss out on a few things, but my job allows me to do things and have time off also, so that I can spend time, when I'm at home. That my favorite thing in the world to do is fix blueberry pancakes for my grandkids. I'm the guy that wakes up early in the morning and puts the bacon on, and when people start piling out of bed, my grandson comes in and says, "Good morning, Papa." And I fix blueberry pancakes, his very favorite. And so I get those opportunities too.
Right. So you get to meet, working with talent, there's a lot of moving parts, logistics, hotels, travel, per diem, booking the events, on the calendar. There's some upcoming events that, you put on the calendar and plan for it. Endorsements, there's all kinds of stuff like that, but we just wanted to talk with Stephen today specifically about what he's been made himself available for. A lot of times it wasn't for pay, and it's just like, hey, we want you to come to this event, and he would do it on his own dime, his own because he believed in helping people, helping his community to be prepared in times of emergency and disaster. It's better to be prepared before the emergency and the disaster, right? So what are the other things that you've seen and appreciate, being on the road and making yourself available?
People ask me all the time, what's the best part of what you do and what's the worst part of what you do? Best part of what I do is I get to meet people. people like Andy, people at churches, and they open up their homes and their church and stuff, and I get to meet really cool people. And I'm not talking about the politicians, which that's cool too in its own rank, but just the normal everyday people that go pick you up at the airport. And in my case, they pick me up at the airport, they open up a console and say, here's a gun, carry this while you're in our state or whatever, and I get to go places. So through GOA, I'm going to The Gathering is my next event, and that's next week, and I'm going to be in South Carolina. 10 to 15,000 people are going to be there shooting guns of all sort, full automatics, suppressed guns, and whatever. And then after the day of shooting is over, they're going to have a bonfire, and we're all going to hang out around the bonfire and have a good old time, and I get to walk the factory of Palmetto State Armory and see where they produce the guns, where they make the parts, the CNC machines that produce the guns that they put on the walls at stores like this all around the country. And I get to speak with the owners of Palmetto State Armory, which are, it's JJ&E Capital Holdings, so I get to go and have dinner with the owners, and I get to do a lot of things. My very first event with GOA, they called me up, said, we need someone to speak in DC. And I said, well, I need to know how long I'm going to speak. I need to know how I should dress, because different occasions require different, respect or whatever. So how I should dress, what I'm going to speak about, if there's special bills that they want me to promote, and who am I going to be speaking to. And they said, we want you to speak 20 minutes, no longer than 25. They said, we want you to dress in your suit. They said, you're going to be speaking to 22 U.S. congressmen and women, and afterwards you're going to have dinner and cocktails with them. And I scratched my head and said, dinner and cocktails. This is my new job, dinner and cocktails. And it's about building relationships. And so that's cool. I get to build relationships. And it's what my job is. And yes, I would love to sign all of you guys that are listening to this to gunowners.org. You can come to gunowners.org, sign up as a member, $25 a year for a membership, but gun owners of America allow me to travel around the country and do the things that I love, to shoot with people, to meet with people, and to fight for our Second Amendment rights.
Well, I'm signing up today as well. And most of you that know me know that I'm a Marine veteran, and what I like about people like Stephen, everyday Americans, not military, not law enforcement, Stephen's not military or law enforcement, but it really, it busts through the narrative. It's an everyday person. You don't have to be military and law enforcement to be a defender in your community, right? So Stephen doesn't come with the baggage of military folks and law enforcement. We have training. We a lot of the combat vets and all that, you've experienced life and death situations, and a civilian should never have to experience that. And unfortunately, in a small town, there is no police force. There were no situations where there was a protector that day, and Stephen entered into the fray and ultimately embraced his calling. This landed on his doorstep. He prayed about it, and thankfully he's making himself available to help a lot of people. And so, Steve, that's why I'm so glad to know you, your wife, your kids, your community, and it's been interesting to hear all the conversations of the things you're working on.
Honestly, it's really just, it's an honor to be called by God. God called me in that moment, and people say, yeah, but you can always tell God no. And my response to that is, it is really interesting to read about being in the belly of a fish from someone else's perspective. I just don't want it to be mine. So when God calls you, you can say no, but you might end up in the belly of a fish like Jonah. I'd just rather not experience that firsthand. So my answer is, here I am. Use me, send me, because ultimately we're all going to die. And it's not about how you die, but it's about how you live.
Amen. All right, Stephen Willeford, Barefoot Defender, good guy with a gun, here on location at Great Guns in Houston, Texas. You can check out the website, gr8guns.com. You can also check out the barefootdefender.com. And what's Gun Owners of America's website?
Gunowners.org.
All right, thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.